Hello and welcome to the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast, where we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy, and using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is the best way for you to defer highly appreciated cryptocurrency businesses, save a failed 1031 exchange. Also, you can defer tax and create and preserve more wealth. Hey, I'm your host, Brett Swarts. In each episode, I'm joined by some of the best real estate, financial, wealth, CPA, and sometimes folks who are going to help you create healthy relationships with your money. I'm excited about our next guest. He is a CPA by trade, and he explores and helps his clients explore the emotions surrounding money management. And he has an amazing book called The Money Nerve, Navigating the Emotions of Money. And his passion is to help you right now gain insight into why your emotions trigger financial decisions and so much more. He's out of West Hollywood, California. He's on the front lines of helping people with money and tax. Please welcome to the show with me, Bob Wheeler. Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Hey, Brett. Great to be here. Good to see you.
Hey, I'm excited to have you on the show. For our listeners getting to know you for the first time, would you give us a little bit more about your story and your current focus?
Absolutely. So I am a CPA by trade. I originally was going to be a lawyer. That was my lifelong goal. And then I got to college, met a few lawyers and thought, yeah, I think maybe not. Jumped into accounting. It was something that came easy. Became a CPA, started doing that. Realized I was not doing the best with my own finances, even though I could tell other people what to do. And a lot of my friends were in the creative arts. And so they were seemingly having problems with money. And a lot of my clients, my entrepreneurs, were doing exact opposite of what seemed like solid financial advice. And it really got me curious about what was going on behind the scenes. And so I got into exploring the emotions, looking at my own history, looking at my clients' history, and a lot of my creative friends' financial history, and wrote a book and decided that I wanted to help people realize that there is no shame in not having the financial download, that it's never too late to learn, and that you're not alone, because there's a lot of people out there with lots of money that also have emotional issues around money.
Hey, Bob, that sounds absolutely fascinating and really unique too. I can't say I know of anyone who's really focused on this space. So I'm looking forward to this interview of creating healthy relationships with money. If people want to get with you right now, by the way, you can get with Bob Wheeler right now by going to themoneynerve.com. That's themoneynerve.com. But Bob, before we go into all of the things creating a healthy relationship with money, I'm curious. I believe we've all been given certain gifts in this life, and these gifts have been given us to be a blessing and help to others. Some people call them strengths, some people call them superpowers. So I want you to go back, perhaps, prior to becoming a CPA, Bob growing up, right? What are the one or two strengths that you believe you were given, and how does that help how you help and bless people today?
The two things I would say would be, one, a sense of humor, and that helps me to be able to get people's defenses down to actually hear what I want to help them with. And the other thing I have is, I think, the ability to be willing to listen and create a safe space so that people can tell me what's actually going on.
Nailed it. It sounds like you've really thought about that, which is fantastic. And I'm going to try to maneuver that into the interview today. Sense of humor, helping people to get their defenses down, and willing to listen and create a safe place. So that being said, Bob, what's the number one secret to creating a healthy relationship with our money?
I think the number one secret is being willing to do the work, being willing to look at our choices and learn from them. So many people want to stay unconscious and just go with the flow. And if we're willing to stop and take a look at and say, why didn't that work? What's not working? What am I willing to do to get there? I think more people would have the success and the healthy relationship with money that they're seeking.
Okay, so let's break that down. Okay, Bob, I'm showing up, right? I'm an entrepreneur. I've made multi-million dollars in cryptocurrency and these huge run-ups, or I own a business and I've operated it for a long time. And perhaps I'm not as organized in my budget, or perhaps I'm not as organized in the tax flow implications of what's going to happen when I sell. Walk us through how you would help me walk through that.
Yeah, so there are clients of mine that have had much success. They base all their goals on financial targets. And now all of a sudden they're saying, great, I have all this money and I'm not very happy. Like, life isn't good, even though I've got lots of money in the bank. So then the question for me starts to become, what are you looking for? What do you want your life to be about? What do you want your legacy to be? What's the impact that you want to have? And for some people, it is having lots of money in the bank. But for most people, it's about actually having deep relationships. It's about having memorable life experiences. It's about being able to travel or do what you want when you want, or even if you're on a budget, being able to do it within your means so that, okay, maybe I can't have everything, but I can have certain things if I actually set my mind to it. And for me, it actually means going back and looking at what are those values that I have or that I had, and are they still serving me? There are a lot of people out there that have gotten lucky financially, and in the back of their mind, they're still waiting to be caught or be waiting to be taken out. And so with that mindset, they're always sort of looking behind them to see when the shoe drops.
So that's really interesting. I want to try to pull some of that out and then ask kind of another level of a question. So really defining what the outcome is for your life, right? Not just your finances, right? The legacy of that, deeper relationships, more time with family, memorable life experiences, making sure you're connecting the one with the other, and know that they're interconnected. I think that's what I'm hearing you saying on the first part of it, right? And then obviously defining your core values as well. And then you mentioned you feel like they're getting caught, right? So walk us through that. That's kind of interesting, right? What are they getting caught with, Bob? And what are you going to help them with?
So one of the big things out there, and it seems silly, is this imposter syndrome. And there's a lot of studies done, psychology and all of this, where people think that they've gotten there by luck. They discount the fact that they have the education or they have the experience or they have the tools. And it's somewhere in the 70% range that people, I don't have the exact numbers in front of me, but it's a very high percentage of people that are waiting to get caught. It happens a little more often in women than it does in men, but there's a place where, oh man, I'm just not really good enough. I've been faking it really well. And like there were about 5 or 6 years ago, there was a guy, he was in the top 50. I think he was like 32nd or 34th, richest man in the world, dropped down into the 60s and committed suicide because he was so devastated that he wasn't in the top 50. And something's going on there besides looking at all of his wealth and saying, wow, I've made it. There's some emotional stuff going on that says, man, I didn't make it enough. I'm not worthy.
Wow. Yeah, that's staggering to think about that, right? 70% are waiting to get caught. So what's the number one sign that perhaps you're waiting to get caught?
Well, we hear it in our under voice, that voice that's actually talking to us all the time in our head that we're trying to ignore. When I go into a room with people and I do a workshop, I'll say to everybody, who wants to be rich? I do. Everybody raises their hand. I want to be rich. And then I'll ask, who deserves it? And you just see everybody like, oh, okay, I don't really deserve it. I was just hoping I could like play the game. So there's this voice that talks to us. Initially, we could say it was our parents, but at a certain point, it's really our voice, maybe disguised as our parents. And that's the voice we actually want to pay attention to, the one that says, you don't deserve it. Something's going to happen. It always goes wrong for you eventually. And start to hear that voice and say, thank you, but you're not serving me anymore. You can move on.
Interesting. Okay. So I think that's a good practical application, right? Who wants to be rich, and then who deserves it. And if those I guess those negative feelings or those, it could be guilt. It could be, you feel, you don't deserve it. And, or, you think it's going to go away. Right. You didn't really have any control of how it got here. Therefore,
right.
Perhaps you're out of control of when it's going to go away. Is that a fair summary?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's not true for everybody. There are many people that will say, oh, I deserve it. Absolutely. I'm totally down with this. And so those folks are not the people that I really need to help because they're already there. But there are a lot of people that, still have that belief, even when they're making millions of dollars. What if?
So what are the steps? Imagine that someone's there right now and they're saying, Bob, that's me, right? And they're saying, Bob, how do I create a healthier relationship? What would be step maybe 1, 2, and 3 to help our listeners right now?
So the first thing would be to start to look back at childhood beliefs, childhood memories around money? What did mom, dad say about money or not say about money? Were you allowed to discuss it? So really starting to look at what's my history around money. And the other thing that I start to do is really get conscious of what I'm saying. I have a lot of high net worth clients that will say to me, "Oh my God, I'm so broke. I'm just broke. I'm not going to be able to afford to run that payroll for the business. I'm so broke." I'll say, "Well, wow, wait a minute. You've got like 3 houses. You've got a couple $1 million in your investment portfolio. I don't know if you're broke. That maybe that's not what it is. Let's reframe that. Maybe I'm just cash flow is tight right now." And so really getting connected with the truth of the story. So for a lot of people, and I'm guilty of this, I'll sit there, I'm looking at somebody's numbers and I'll say, "Oh man, that's so great. They've got a couple of houses and they've got a rental property and they've got this. I wish I could, I've gotten there." But I forget sometimes because I'm still back in that mindset of, I got to keep going. I got to keep going. And I'll catch myself in these sad stories that aren't true. So checking it out and saying, is that really true? Because a lot of times it's not. And the third thing then is, am I willing to start making changes that will actually better serve what I say I want? And so if I say I want to be able to buy a house or I want to be able to travel, what are my current spending habits right now that are sabotaging these goals that I say I want in my life?
Oh my gosh, so much wisdom there. I'm going to try to pull it for our listeners here. Okay, so first of all, childhood beliefs, right? And I'm also thinking about, scarcity mindset versus abundant mindset, right?
Absolutely.
Different generations grow up with different money beliefs and different habits in general, and realizing what these beliefs and these mindsets are manifesting in your actions and in your relationship with money. I think that's number one. Number two, words have power, right? So what you're telling yourself and how you're saying it also can affect you emotionally. Like, I'm broke versus like, no, cash flow's a little bit tight right now and I might need to reorganize. Again, it's defining who you are versus saying I can go and do something about it and have control, right? Whereas if you say I'm broke, that almost is like a helpless state. I'm a victim, right? I can do nothing. But
Exactly.
if you say cash flow's a little bit tight right now, you're not overstating the reality. You're defining that, and then which leads us to step number 3, which is working to make changes, right?
Yeah.
Actually doing the hard work of the budget and the data, right? And versus what's coming in, and then making a plan to execute. Is that a fair summary? How do I do, Bob?
Yeah, you did great. You did great. I think we've done this interview before, right?
No, this is the first time, people. This is the first time. So, okay. So that's amazing, Bob. So tell us a little bit about, and I'm reading a book and I'm actually flipping through it right now. And it's from Ray Dalio, Principles for Success. Mm-hmm. And he has a quote in this, and I'm trying to find the quote. But one of the things that he says is that our ego prevents us from acknowledging our weaknesses, right? Yeah. And our need to be right can come before our need to know what's true.
Yes.
So we believe our opinions without testing them, right? Or getting maybe someone like Bob Wheeler to help us flesh out some of these things, right? And we especially don't like to look at ourselves, look at our mistakes and weaknesses, right? That affects our ego, who we are. It can threaten our self-image, right? And we're instinctively prone to react to explorations of them as attacks, right? We just see them as people attacking us, and this leads to worse decisions, learning less, and falling short of our potentials. Yeah. Right. And that's really the bad thing here, right? If we don't face these things and work through these things, especially if such a big thing like money, right, which affects marriages and business and future and legacy, that it can create these blind spots, and it can create these areas of not reaching our potential. So would you talk a little bit about that, or does that resonate, Bob?
Yeah, it totally resonates. We don't like to look at our blind spots. We like to think we know everything. And it's really about what actually serves us. I have so many couples that come in for a meeting. The first thing they'll say is, "Bob, we have dinner writing on this because we got to figure out who's right. And before I even answer, I'll say, well, let me ask you this. Are you playing on opposite teams, or are you trying to actually work together? And they'll be like, oh, okay, we're a team. But secretly, they're trying to get their wins in. And I think that's a great thing for a lot of couples to look at and decide, am I in it to win it, or am I in it to be in relationship and really be a powerhouse couple, be a powerhouse team? This blind spot for me is not wanting like it keeps me in victimhood, right? If I don't have control over these things and I don't have to look at them, then I can't actually change them. But if I'm willing to say, I really made some bad choices here. I got caught up. I wanted to show off. I wanted people to be impressed. If I can look at that and realize that I can actually stop, take a breath, get a little more grounded, and then make a different choice where I'm not feeding my ego. Because the more we feed our ego, I think the less evolved and the less connected we are to what we actually want. Because if I'm not looking at my blind spots and knowing where I excelled and where I faltered, then it's all luck, the good and the bad.
Gosh, so much wisdom there, Bob. I love the way you put that. Are we a team, and are we working together, or are we in competition to prove what's right? And sometimes we don't even realize we're in that mindset, right? Yeah. All of a sudden, and there's a book called Crucial Conversations where it goes through this, and all of a sudden we're in like this high stakes thing, and it can be highly emotional, highly charged, and to feel like we're in it's attack and counterattack, and that's not good. And so this book goes on to say that he learned that doing things in a kind of a different way and realizing his blind spots and not going at it alone. And then the next thing was to achieve his goals, he had to replace the joy of being right with the joy of learning what's true. So this is like jumped out at me like, wow. Like, so would you speak to how perhaps you help others do that, to trade that ego, pride, of being right and holding your position to creating a joy for finding out what's true?
Yeah, it's, we love to be right. It just feels good when we get that win. What it makes me think of, I was doing a workshop and this woman came to me and she said, look, I really want my husband and I to get our finances in order, but he's terrible with all this stuff. How do I get him to fix his ways? And I said, well, it's probably not going to happen if you come at it that way, because I know if you came to me and told me everything I was doing wrong, like, I'm not going to work with you. I'm already on the defense and I'm going to prove you wrong, even though I know you're telling the truth. And so what I actually said to her is, maybe you could actually have a conversation with your husband and tell him that you want to get on track and that you want to really figure out how to do better. And would he be willing to work with you in looking at how you could do better? And she said, oh, gosh, maybe I could try that, right? Where she's taking away the defenses because she's actually coming to him saying, help me. And we all love to help people, mostly. And it's a great way to diffuse something. So instead of attacking him, she was actually engaging him and saying, look, I need to do better. Instead of you, it's I'm actually trying to get on track. And the more we can disarm people in that way and actually not make them wrong and make them our allies, I think the further we go.
So much wisdom there. I love that. I want to get on track and I want to do better. Can you help me? It's leading with humility and openness to how you can change, right? Give enough people what they want, you can get everything you want, versus asking, give me, right? Yeah. You give, and then let's see if we can all come together. Is that a fair summary?
That's a fair summary. Absolutely.
Excellent. Absolutely love it. So do you want to geek out a little bit now? We did a lot of psychology there. And do you want to geek out a little bit now about capital gains tax? Like people are like, what in the world? What are we talking about this stuff? Well, it's all important. This is all because you're making big decisions. And when you go to sell your highly appreciated asset, your business, your real estate, your cryptocurrency, your emotional state and your outcome and clarifying your health with your money matters, right? And so it's one in both. It can't be just all financial logical. It's got to be emotional and behavioral, right? And so making sure that you're in the right mindset emotionally and on the numbers wise makes so much sense. So you ready, Bob? We're going to geek out a little bit about capital gains tax.
Let's do it.
All right. So Bob, a lot of people before they find us, right, they're frustrated. They're like, hey, I got this 1031 that I don't want to overpay for, or I'm tired of the toilets, trash, and liability. I've owned this apartment complex in West Hollywood for 20 years, and it used to be so easy, but now there's rent control, and now there's all this. I'm ready to retire, but I'm facing 30 to 50% in capital gains tax and depreciation recapture. And I don't want to trade 20 units. I have 20 problems. I don't need 40 problems. Like, I want no problems, right? But they feel trapped in this 1031 loop. So I'm curious, what's the biggest frustration you've seen when it comes to clients? And it could be selling cryptocurrency, businesses, real estate. with capital gains tax deferral and or the 1031 exchange?
Well, I think the biggest thing is a lot of people don't plan ahead. So when I'm looking at, like, when I've got people retiring, they've got some rental property, we take a look at, do we want to, maybe we sell the main house and get that 250 or 500,000 exemption and then move into the rental property. And maybe we're going to live in that till we pass or something, but trying to defer that gain is something that a lot of people don't think about. They're like, well, I don't really want to move. I don't want to do that. That's inconvenient. And to me, it's about really being strategic. I'm surprised how many people don't know the rules. And I think if you're going to invest, no matter what you're doing, find out the rules or work with somebody that does know the rules. I had a guy that sold about a couple $1 million worth of stocks, and he sold them a day short of a long-term capital gain. And he'd been trading for years. And so I said to him, what happened here? Why didn't you wait the extra day? He's like, what are you talking about? I said, wait a minute. You don't know that if you hold it a year and a day, it's a long-term? He goes, oh, I never heard that rule. I said, well, this is how much extra you're paying in tax. He's like, oh, I won't forget that. But it's to me, this last year, so many people got hit with, I had several clients with $750, $1 million worth of wash sales. And I'm like, you owe a lot of money. They're like, no, I have losses. I said, no, you had wash sales. You didn't pay attention. And so I saw that as a really big problem this year. And so for me, a lot of it is not taking the time to be strategic, talking with somebody else that knows the rules, that can help you out so that you can figure out, okay, does the 1031 exchange make sense in this case? Or maybe it's just better to pay the capital gains because I've got $700,000 worth of capital losses somewhere else that are going to just eat into that gain. Because a lot of people don't take that into consideration. When I'm working with advisors, I'm always saying, let's look at any capital loss carry forward before we decide what losses we're going to cultivate.
Very, very well said. So not taking the time to plan, not taking, and maybe it's inconvenient if it's the 121 exclusion, living in a house too the last 5 years. That's what Bob was referring to. You have a $500,000, tax exemption, right? Which is really nice. So if you bought a house for $1 million and you sell it for 1.5, hey, you're good. There's no tax if you lived there too the last 5 years and you're married. You mentioned wash sales. I want to make sure our clients aren't missing that, right? And oh, by the way, we have a solution for the Deferred Sales Trust, or the Deferred Sales Trust, to defer public or private stock, and also cryptocurrency, not using a 1031 exchange. So if anyone's thinking, oh no, I'm going to sell some public stock, but I want to defer the capital gains tax, we can do that. You can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com. But let's talk about the wash sales there, Bob. Like, define that so make sure people understand exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. So if I go out and let's say, just for example, I sell some Apple stock, and that's probably not realistic, but I sell some Apple stock and I lose a whole bunch of money. I sold, 50 shares and I lose all this money. And then within 30 days, I go out and buy more Apple stock. And I'm thinking I'm going to get to capture all these losses that I just picked up. And I got so smart. Within 30 days, I bought some more stock. You're not going to get to recognize that loss when you come tax time. You're going to have to wait. That's going to get kicked down the pike. And so what happens is people think they're going to capture all these losses. And if they've done it within 30 days, they will not be seeing those losses.
Okay, got it. So you want to make sure that it's 30 days or more. So if I bought Apple stock, let's say for $1 million, and it dropped to 800,000, and I was like, oh, I'll take that loss there, and I immediately bought something else, at the low, and it rode up to 400,000, right?
Right.
Doesn't matter. You're not going to be able to just sell at 400,000 and offset 200 of that.
That's right.
Because you bought it. But had I bought that same stock 31 days from the time that I sold,
that's right,
and the same thing happened, then I'd be able to write it off. Is that a fair summary?
That's absolutely right.
Okay, perfect. Excellent. Well, great. That being said, are you ready for the lightning round?
Let's do it.
All right. Knowing what you know now, if you can go back to your 25-year-old self, what's the one golden nugget and make sure to tell yourself to do?
Take more risks.
Second question, what's the number one book you've recommended or gifted the most in the past year?
Power of Focus.
Who's it by?
Jack Canfield.
All right. Next question. What are you most curious about right now?
What am I most curious about? More of my blind spots.
Me too. Second to last question. What's the number one leadership quote or theme that you strive to live by?
I would say, that's a quote. I just step into leadership. See your future, be your future, live with integrity.
Fantastic. And last question for our listeners is this: after all your success helping the people you've helped, writing the book you've written, by the way, please share that book here, right, as before you start this question, so we know how to grab that as well. How do you stay centered, Bob, in your values, and how do you stay encouraged to charge forward to reach new heights?
I really try to stay humbled and grateful. I travel a lot, and especially to developing countries, to remind myself how fortunate I am. And I really am humbled by so many people in the world that don't have it as well as I do, who are compassionate, giving, kind, and would give you the last shirt off their back. And so for me, being humbled and grateful, and my friends all know this, if I get myself too high up on a pedestal, that they lovingly, kindly help me off the pedestal rather than push me off with great force. So I want to try to just, continue to be humbled.
Bob, I want to thank you for being on the show. I want you to remind us one last time where we can find you for people who want to get in connection with you, and remind us of that book that you had released.
Yes, it is themoneynerve.com, not nerd. I'm a nerd, but it's themoneynerve.com. And people can reach me there. And the book, The Money Nerve, Navigating the Emotions of Money, you can get on Amazon, our website, and all other kinds of bookstores. We'd love for you to check us out.
Fantastic. Hey, Bob Wheeler, thanks for being on the show. I want to encourage you to keep using the gifts and talents you've been given of having a great sense of humor, helping people to see perhaps their blind spots on their money, emotions, and then be willing to listen and to help them overcome these challenges that they're facing. And I also want to thank our listeners for listening to that episode of the Capital Gains Tax Solutions podcast. As always, we believe most high net worth individuals and those who help them, they struggle with clarifying their capital gains tax deferral options. Not having a clear plan is the enemy. Using a proven tax deferral strategy such as the Deferred Sales Trust is the best way for you to exit high-end primary homes. Forget about that 121 exclusion. You can move out right now and defer the tax. If you want to, use the Deferred Sales Trust to do that. Cryptocurrency, public or private stock, whatever you need, as long as it has a $1 million net proceeds, $1 million gain, we can help you. You can go to capitalgainstaxsolutions.com and schedule your one-on-one consultation, no cost, for yourself or your clients. You can also join our mastermind. It happens every Friday at 10 a.m. It's free and it's for everybody. 10 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern, where we talk all things Deferred Sales Trust and try to make it really simple for everybody. Hey, thanks so much for watching or listening to this show. I want to encourage you to rate, review, subscribe. And if you're out there in expert CRE secrets world, thank you so much for watching as well or listening. And please come back to us soon.